Ethan had always preferred solitude. It wasn't that he disliked people, but the silence of traveling alone gave him a sense of peace that nothing else could. He was a wanderer, moving from place to place with only his backpack, his camera, and a thirst for discovering the unknown. This trip was meant to be no different. A journey through Europe, from the bustling streets of London to the silent valleys of the Scottish Highlands, from the ancient ruins of Rome to the mist-covered mountains of Austria. He had carefully documented each moment with his camera, capturing landscapes, empty streets, and forgotten relics of history. But on his last night in Vienna, something shifted. Something that had been there all along, hidden in plain sight, waiting for him to notice. It started as a whisper in his mind, a nagging feeling that something was off as he scrolled through the pictures in his gallery. His fingers stopped when he saw it. A figure, a stranger in a long black coat. Ethan frowned. He didn't remember anyone being there when he had taken that shot. It was supposed to be an empty alleyway, just as the sun was setting, the golden light casting long shadows. And yet, there he was, a tall man, standing at the very edge of the frame, almost blending into the darkness. Curious, he swiped to the next photo. A different location, a different time of day. But there he was again. Ethan felt his breath hitch. He zoomed in. The man wasn't just in the background. He was facing the camera, staring, swiping faster now. Ethan checked photo after photo. Each one sent a fresh chill through his spine. The man in the black coat appeared in every image. He was in the distance in some, barely visible in the fog, while in others, he was close enough for Ethan to make out the pale complexion of his skin, the dark hollowness of his eyes. It didn't make sense. Some of these places had been empty, completely deserted. He remembered standing on the cliffside overlooking the sea, nothing but the waves below and the wind against his face. But there, in the image, the man stood just a few feet behind him watching. Ethan's pulse quickened. This wasn't normal. A cold sweat formed at the nape of his neck. He hadn't noticed anyone following him. He would have remembered seeing someone like that, wouldn't he? Shaking his head, he tried to reason with himself. Maybe it was just an odd coincidence. A traveler who happened to visit the same places. A strange trick of the light. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. And then he saw the last photo. His heart stopped. It was a close-up of a face. Not just any face. His own. But he didn't remember taking it. His breath hitched as he zoomed in, searching for an explanation. The image was crisp, detailed. The camera had been held right in front of his face. His expression was neutral, but his eyes. Something was wrong with his eyes. They were empty, lifeless. His reflection in the glass behind him revealed something worse. The man in the black coat stood right behind him, his lips curved into the faintest smile. His pulse pounded in his ears. His room felt smaller, darker, as if the shadows in the corners had thickened. The hotel walls closed in around him, the hum of the city outside now muffled distant. He had to get out. Scrambling to his feet, Ethan grabbed his phone and backpack, shoving his belongings inside without care. His fingers trembled as he unlocked his door and stepped into the dimly lit hallway. He took the stairs two at a time, his breathing uneven. The lobby was quiet, the receptionist half asleep behind the desk. He didn't bother checking out. He needed to leave. Now. Out on the street, the cold air hit his face, but it did nothing to calm his nerves. He turned in circles, scanning his surroundings. Cars passed, people walked. Life moved on as usual. But something felt wrong. A heavy weight settled in his chest as he pulled out his phone, hesitantly opening the gallery again. The last photo was still there, but something had changed. The face in the image wasn't just his anymore. The stranger was there too, his face overlapping Ethan's like a double exposure, like two people trying to exist in the same space. And then Ethan remembered. A memory, buried deep in the recesses of his mind, clawed its way to the surface. A cold lake, a stormy night, a boy's laughter, echoing in the darkness before it was swallowed by a scream. He wasn't alone when he was born. He had a twin. Had. The realization hit him like ice water. His twin brother Nathan. The one who had drowned when they were just children. The one Ethan had tried to save, but failed. But he wasn't gone, was he? Nathan had found his way back. Watching, waiting, following. And now he was here. Ethan's hands tremble as he stares at the screen. His reflection, his own face, but layered with Nathan's. A blending of two existences that shouldn't be. But this time, instead of fear, something clicks. He remembers everything. The lake, the storm, the way Nathan had reached for him as the waters pulled him under. The way Ethan had screamed for help, but no one came. Guilt had consumed him for years, even though no one had blamed him. Maybe that's why he traveled so much, running from a ghost he didn't even realize was following him. But now, standing in this empty street with the truth laid bare before him, Ethan does something he never expected. He whispers, "Nathan." The air around him shifts. The streetlights flicker. A cold breeze brushes against his skin. For the first time, he turns his phone camera toward himself, not out of fear, but acceptance. "You're here, aren't you?" he says softly. A pause. Then the screen of his phone glitches slightly. And in that fraction of a second, Ethan sees him. Nathan. Not a terrifying, faceless entity. Not a shadow lurking behind him. But his brother, his twin, as he was in life. His eyes aren't hollow. They're full of something else. Longing. Understanding. Ethan's breath steadies. "I never forgot you," he says. "And I never will." The phone screen flickers once more. Then, without warning, the gallery app closes on its own. When Ethan reopens it, the photos are still there. But Nathan is gone. A warmth spreads through Ethan's chest. A weight he didn't even know he carried lifts. Nathan had been waiting, not to haunt, not to harm, but to be remembered. And now he can rest. Ethan lets out a deep breath and looks up at the night sky. For the first time in a long time, he doesn't feel alone. Tomorrow, he'll keep traveling, keep exploring. But this time, he'll do it knowing he's never truly alone, because Nathan will always be with him, not as a ghost, but as a part of who he is. And for the first time, that thought doesn't scare him. It makes him smile.